March has arrived. Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we will discuss week 9 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, week 9 was busy for sure. We were able to get all of the cool weather seeds in, the beets, the radishes. We were able to get carrots in the ground. We planted all of our onion sets. And as we consistently preach here at the Garden Hutch, when you're doing raised bed gardening, especially in early spring, it is imperative that you cover them with something. We use leaves. You can use any other type of mulch, anything you need, just something to give them a bit of insulation, preferably have a little bit of air in there sort of to make sure that a frost won't hit them. Because with this being Arkansas and it being early spring, we are in for a very hard freeze coming up this week. So it's going to be beautiful. Today is going to be in the 50s. We'll have 2 days in the 70s. By the end of next week, it's going to be crazy. I believe we'll have 2 days in a row going into next weekend where we have 40 to 41 for our highs, and our lows will be in the mid-teens. That is enough to kill most things. However, if you've covered your seeds, these plants they do well in that type of environment, in a cool weather environment. They also need just a bit of insulation in case they have started to sprout. So that'll be something that we do, and we'll also show you here in a bit. We'll go through. I've had a request to kind of show again the depth of the leaves that we use in the onions and the garlic, because they go all year. We plant some of our onions as we showed in our vlog. We planted some of those last week whenever there was still ice on the ground. So I'll show you that bed here in a bit. Other than that, we got a lot of shoveling done. I'll show you all that. And we have some chicken conversations to have. Before we begin too far with what happened last week, I just noticed this when I was coming out. Our yellow jasmine is starting to bloom. This stuff smells incredible. And this is a cool weather flowering plant, but we really love it. And it starts in the early spring and it'll go all the way through probably the end of April or so. But as mentioned, I had a request to sort of go over the garlic and onion beds here and sort of show the depth that we use here. You can see we go about 1.5 inches deep of these leaves here, and then you can see the soil down here. But even it's been this year, I believe the low thus far has gotten to 13 at night, 13, 12, 13, something like that. And you can see that our onions that we planted during the ice storm, they're coming up. So just to reiterate, in your raised beds, you can start a little earlier than in the actual ground itself if you put in some insulation, inch and a half of leaves. Oh, by the way, that guy is a jerk. Well, as we discussed, we are done with the mulch. Woohoo! I cannot tell you how big of an accomplishment that feels like. We had 7 full truckloads, and those are the big box trucks with the lifts that you see, the electric company and stuff using whenever they're trimming down the trees around the power lines. We had 7 of those completely full. I don't know how much they had, but it took up a huge space. So I was just going to walk this here real fast so everybody can kind of get an understanding of how much mulch. So it was dumped from where we started back there all the way up the side of this hill, under the fruit trees, and all the way down to where you see this last little bit. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful because we got all of this for free. We did have to leave it in the yard for 2 years to sort of cure, and there were some stumps and a bit of trash in there, just a couple bottles and things that you saw us walk past. But overall, this was a great experience. It saved us a lot of money. We used it to fill our beds, to mulch all of our fruit trees, but it went from way back there to right here. And I can say that I shoveled every bit of that myself, and I hated every moment. Ray, were you here to give moral support? It's appreciated. One of the big reasons we decided to make this channel was we wanted to bring our audience along as we created our gardens from beginning to end, as we learned, expanded. But one of the really big things that I wanted to show people was our failures. And so that brings me to the greenhouse. We get our seeds from a company called Urban Farmer, and the seeds are phenomenal. I think we've had like a 95% germination rate so far since we started using them. Again, I can't say enough good things about them. So anyway, so we started our tomatoes, and I started them early intentionally just in case anything went wrong. We had showed last week everything came up. Well, this week we had a major frost come through. It got down to about 29 degrees. Like early in the evening. We thought it wouldn't reach below, 28 or so we thought the greenhouse would be fine. It dipped down to 21, and I did not put my tomato plants on the inner greenhouse. I left them out. And so I'm going to show you what happens when you're an idiot. So as I mentioned, I left these in here so I could show them to you. You can see my poor tomato plants. It got, for some reason, there were a few of them. Like you can see this guy over here, it made it just fine. But I would say probably out of 38 tomato plants, I think I have maybe 6 left. So that's, that's not good. But everything else did really well, right? Like, so you can see our cabbages, they love everything about it. And our eggplants did well. Kale made it all the way through. Our basil here, you can see it got a little bit. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to make sure that, I'm going to take a lap whenever I do stuff correctly. And I also want to make sure that we're transparent about all the mistakes that we make. I know that when I was first started off in the corporate world, my first boss told me that you learn way more from your failures than you do your mistakes. So we're just going to plant more tomatoes. We'll leave them inside, and I'll probably just go ahead from now on, since I don't have as much room for error. I will probably take the tomato plants inside probably until, I don't know, April or so. I'll leave them out here to get the day sun to make sure they don't get too leggy. Just take them inside once the sun goes down. It'll be a pain in the rear end, I guess, going forward for a few months, but it is way better than seeing all that work turn out like that. So as mentioned, we have a little bit of a chicken conversation to have this week. We have gotten in the shed, we've got the little area ready for our pullets that will be coming, and when you get pullets, all that means is they're sexed, so we'll make sure that they're all female. We are getting ours from a local company. They get them in every Tuesday, and they get several different heritage breeds is what they're called. Now, the heritage breeds just means that they're not genetically modified for, rapid egg laying. These brown girls here, we got those, and they are, we didn't know it when we bought them, but they are genetically engineered for laying. They laid, whenever they were in their prime, they would lay 2 eggs a day sometimes. And we get a whole bunch of eggs, but we've started losing them. This is their 3rd year. We started doing research on them, and they only live 3 to 5 years, whereas these blue girls over here, they lay relatively consistently. They lay each day. They'll skip a day here and there, and in the wintertime, they may lay only once every 3 days, but they live up to 10 years, and they'll lay for 7 to 8 of those years. Now, the reason that's relevant for us anyway is because we like to raise our chickens from chicks so that they're used to the yard, they're used to us, they're easier to put away. The animals are used to the chickens. When our neighbors' chickens get in the yard from time to time, our German Shepherd likes to chase them off. They don't like the flocks kind of mingling. So anyway, to avoid all that, we like to raise them from a chick. And that's an expensive time, relatively, for when you're raising chickens, because they're not out grazing, they're not eating out of the yard or anything. And all they're doing is they're growing and eating, and then you got to clean up after them, and you have to have clean bedding all the time. So that first, it usually takes about 16 to 20 weeks for them to start laying. So that 16 to 20 weeks is by far the most expensive time for your chickens. So we're adding a dozen chickens to the flock. And what we've done is we've kind of gotten a routine down to where we let the chickens out early in the morning, we put them away late at night, and our food expense is negligible. I think it costs us, I think we buy a 40-pound bag of feed every 5 weeks at this point. What's going on, Otis? So anyway, we get a bag of food every 5 to 6 weeks. If we get, it'll be, of course, when they're chicks, it's going to be significantly more expensive. But once they get out, I think it's going to come down to, it'll drop to about every 3 weeks or so, we'll have to buy a bag of food. But considering the cost of food now and the direction that economies are going with all the geopolitical things going on currently, we kind of feel like it's better for us to have a guaranteed source of protein. And I don't mean that we'll eat the chickens, and there's nothing wrong with it for those of you who do, but for Leslie and I, they kind of become pets over time, and it's really difficult for us to butcher the chickens. But anyway, that's sort of the chicken update. We have the area ready. We haven't decided on just a breed just yet. We still have a couple weeks to make that determination, but we do have everything set and ready. We sort of put pen to paper as far as the numbers are concerned, and we think it is by far our best way to go. With the sort of financial uncertainty, you know, I'd rather eat eggs and that sort of stuff than not have them, I suppose. Well, as usual, I would like to thank all of you folks who have made it this far into the video. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the little bell icon. YouTube will let you know when we upload new content. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving it a like. Until next time, I hope you folks take care of yourselves, and more than ever, peace.